Tampa Bay Bucks, the final draft to analyze here for the 2025 NFL Draft. You're calling it a down the fairway draft. They got a whole lot of good football players. I like it for the second straight year. Emeka Egbuka in the first round, Ohio State wide receiver, Benjamin Morrison, the Notre Dame corner in the second, Jacob Parrish, Kansas State corner in the third, then back-to-back edge rushers in rounds 4 and 5, David Walker from Central Arkansas, Big Elijah Roberts from SMU, and then Tez Johnson in the seventh from Oregon. So, you call that the high. Those are all just good football players. They're just all good football players, including Tez. I would call that the good football player that ran 451, way undersized, and that's what they got. So they just continued to grab good football players. Your thoughts on this Bucks draft here? Yeah, I think they just drafted a series of extremely safe football players. Um, Guys who might not have like off the charts level of upside, but were just really good. Yeah, by the way, Jay McGarry, there mentions in the chat, I didn't mention the fact that the Falcons' draft value-wise was by far and away the number one according to RF's work. So Falcons effectively had the most valuable draft relative to the capital that they expended in this entire thing. Yeah. So you want to... We'll start with the BUA at the top here for the Bucks. I have a soft spot for not drafting needs and getting good football players. So obviously I like this. The fact that the Bucks have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan on the roster did not keep them from getting a BUA. I also don't think it diminishes the value because it's receiver. If it was a tackle and you have two starting tackles, you could argue, hey, this guy's never going to see the field. But as a receiver four, Chris Godwin coming off of injury, I think he sees the field. And, you know, the more I watched Egbuka in this process, the more he grew on me. He was another character guy that everybody was raving about, but also I think he can play in the slot, tight splits, gets open, ball skills were outstanding, especially at the catch point, catches the ball really well. I think he moves well enough. So I think he's a really good player, and both in the short and long term, a really nice play here for the Bucks. Yeah, Ibuka's an interesting draft pick because they didn't just not have a need at receiver. Like, they really don't have a need at receiver. They just brought back Chris Godwin and signed him to a lot of money to do that. They've got Mike Evans still there. They have, you know, other options in that group that Jalen McMillan, who drafted, looks really handy and looks like there's a lot of redundancy in Ibuka to what they already have in Godwin, in McMillan. Um, and I think it's a case of, look, we're just going to take a really good football player. And Ibuka, I think, is one of the more interesting draft picks in the draft to me because pretty much everybody viewed him exactly the same. Like, he might have the narrowest range of evaluations of anybody out there. Everyone viewed him exactly the same as he is a classic high-end number 2 receiver who exploits zones extremely well, who's good after the catch, who's powerful, who does everything really well, but doesn't really have number 1 upside. The only difference really was, where do you value that? Do you think that's a second round player? Do you think that's a high first round player? Where do you put it? Evidently, the Bucks viewed it, not only is it worth a pick where they drafted him, you know, 2/3 of the way through the first round, but it's worth doing that even if you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan already on the roster. So, a sort of fascinating evaluation of where the Bucks valued that skill set. Interesting. Interestingly enough, I put him, in my notes, I put him on the big slot spectrum of like a Cooper Kupp, Amber St. Brown, Tyler Boyd, or Chris Godwin, as far as that spectrum of players. So, I see the chat talking about Godwin might be cooked. If that's the case, then the Bucks extending him for $22 million a year might not have been the wisest thing in the world, but it is a nice security blanket if Godwin doesn't get back from the injury. Plus, you know, he's getting a little bit older, obviously. So, I like that as a pick. And again, everything else, Benjamin Morrison, we're calling this safe in football players, which is true. The risk with Morrison, though, is multiple hip injuries, surgeries, missing a lot of time last year. But again, when he's on the field, I think he's a first-round talent. Benjamin Morrison. And there's also a potential need at starting corner in a year or as Jamal Dean gets a little bit older, figuring out his future. Are they going to resign Zion McCollum?